Hello there, people of the internet. I am here with some 8mm Mauser and a rifle. This is my German Kar 98. You guys have seen this plenty of times on the channel. I've brought it out to the gun range plenty of times and put some lead on target plenty of times with this rifle. So I've made videos talking about the good things about 8mm Mauser and how it is one of my all-time favorite cartridges, although I did have some pretty bad luck starting off with the cartridge. And that's just because there was a lot about 8mm Mauser that I just did not understand. And some of those nightmarish times, those phobia-created times, are kind of one of the reasons why I'm making this video. I'm doing a little series where I'm talking about various bolt-action rifles that I have, and talking about the cons of them. I talk about the pros of these rifles all the time, to the point to where it's kind of like repeated information over and over and over on a lot of my videos. And a lot of that has to do with just the fact that I really like my rifles here. I'm a big fan of Mauser actions. Like, it is one of my all-time favorite actions, but it still has its downsides and drawbacks. So today we're talking about the base model Mauser. If you want to go and sporterize and change up the Mauser to become like a more modern firearm, then it's no longer the Mauser that we're talking about. It's more of a, well, modern rifle with an old action. Okay, specifically we're talking about 8mm Mauser. There might be other Mauser rifles that I decide to cover down the road, but today, like I said, we're talking specifically 8mm Mausers. Okay, so a couple of big cons of the 8mm Mauser bolt-action rifle. First off, it's a 5-shot internal magazine bolt-action rifle, so that is definitely one of the big drawbacks for this style of rifle. If you're going to be using a style of rifle like this for any real practical purposes, all you have is that 5 shots, and the only way to reload is to either single load to the top or reload via stripper clip. So 5 shots, that's all you got. Technically 6 if you put one in the chamber with the Mauser system, but they come on 5-round stripper clips, so I don't really foresee that happening. You definitely want to load with stripper clips if you're going to be running and gunning with something like this in any real practical sense, especially in the modern day. Every time you pull the trigger, you have to cycle the bolt on this thing. It is a manually operated system, so you got to pull the bolt back, and then you got to push the bolt forward. And it's just a significantly slower process than something that is like a self-loading semi-automatic rifle, where all you have to do is pull the trigger every time you want it to go bang. So that's going to be a big gripe on basically all of the firearms that I do in this series. Manually operated bolt-action rifle with a limited magazine capacity, and an internal magazine to where you have no choice but to feed them with stripper clips. So another big thing I don't like about the Mauser, there's no real good way to mount an optic to this thing without like drilling and tapping the receiver and making significant modifications to it, or sacrificing your iron sights in order to get a scope mount, like an aftermarket Picatinny rail scope mount on the thing. So without making modifications to the rifle, there's just no way to mount any real optics to the thing, and that makes sense for the time period where this was designed. This is a model 1898 pattern rifle, and well, during the 1890s, there was just not a whole lot of optic usage going on. It was definitely more of an iron sight era. As a matter of fact, some 30 or so years ago, we were still using muzzle loaders and round balls and whatnot. So that right there was definitely a big advantage and big developments in firearms technology. So unlike something like the Mosin, the sights are not zeroed on the rifle while the bayonet is attached. I do like the bayonets on most of your Mausers. They're going to be blade-style bayonets, and unless we're talking like early powdered Mausers, they're going to be like not all that long and over-encumbering. If we're talking about the carbine length rifles, in this particular case, this is a Kar 98K. It is a good, what would I call it? A good ratio of adequate barrel length to stop like excessive powder burn outside the barrel and excessive concussive blast and whatnot, without having to worry about like the significant barrel length that you get on a lot of your long rifles. I know a lot of your 8mm Mauser rifles that come from, I know like a lot of your Turkish rifles and Spanish rifles and whatnot are like full-length rifles, and your early 8mm Mausers from Germany are full-length rifles versus just the carbines that they instituted on a more common basis, or I think they started this in like the 1930s, where they started issuing these to everybody versus long rifles and carbines to certain people. So it is a good barrel length to I guess power reduction ratio, because you really don't lose a whole lot with 8mm Mauser with that shortened barrel. That being said, it's still quite the long barrel. I think the barrels come out on these to about 24 inches, and I do a lot of hunting here in the state of Florida, and I use a lot of modern hunting rifles for hunting purposes. And the modern hunting rifles nowadays tend to have more around a 20 to a 22-inch barrel, and this little bit longer barrel, even though it is a shorter carbine version of a rifle, it is still significantly noticeable. That's not really a complaint for the rifle, because it is shorter than what it is, what predated the rifle. But it's still significantly noticeable. That's, I guess, an honorable mention that I want to bring up. Alright, so I covered the magazine, manually operated system, no good way to mount optics. I do like the bayonet. I do like the barrel length, but it's still not quite as short as what I would like, but it makes sense considering it's firing a full-powered rifle cartridge. That being said, the 8mm Mauser full-power rifle cartridge, one of my all-time favorite cartridges. It has problems, though. Most of the problems aren't really indicative of the design itself. A lot of the problems with the ammunition comes from modern day issues. So much of the 8mm Mauser on the market right now is surplus stuff, and you never know if the surplus stuff is going to run well or if it's not going to run at all. I know I've bought plenty of 8mm Mauser in my time, and I've had stuff that runs good and stuff that runs bad, and like stuff from certain batches that will run good and like the same stuff from other batches that will run bad. Like, it's just a roll of the dice as to whether or not you're going to get good ammunition. In this particular case, I got some Turkish Mauser stuff, and this stuff is notorious for burning a little bit hot, and some batches burn hotter than others, and I have had people tell me that this stuff mimics whatever it is that the Germans were using, which is a 155 grain projectile that's supposed to travel around 3,000 feet per second. Well, I have seen this stuff chronographed, especially early World War II stuff. I've seen it chronographed out to 3,200 feet per second, so it definitely does have batches that are a little bit spicier than other batches. So you just don't know what you're going to get with particular batches and particular ammunition types. Like, I got Ethiopian 8mm Mauser that was just absolute trash. It didn't even go off most of the time. I got Egyptian stuff that was okay-ish, but it also did not go off all that often. This Turkish stuff is overpowered, and it deals with like cracked brass and whatnot, but at least it goes bang most of the time. I got some Romanian stuff. I got some Yugoslavian stuff. That stuff fires all right. The Romanian stuff is a little bit shorter of a case, so if you fire a bunch of that, you get a carbon ring, and it makes loading regular 8mm Mauser ammunition a little bit more difficult, but you got to fire a lot of ammo for that. I got some Greek stuff. That stuff is not as reliable as I was hoping for. It depends on the batches that you get. The ammunition that's on the surplus market is just all over the place, and you never know what you're going to get. You're really just rolling the dice whenever you go out and buy yourself a batch of ammo. That being said, even if it does work, all this surplus ammo is corrosive, so you need to clean your rifle every single time that you shoot it. Otherwise, you're going to rust out your bore and you're going to lose accuracy. That's one of the big issues I have with this surplus ammo. Every time I go to the range and I come home, I gotta clean my rifle. And I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but at the same time, my time is limited and I have a lot going on. I work a full-time job, and I'm doing YouTube, and I'm trying to upload a video every single day, and then I got to do my own recording and my own editing, and it's definitely quite the process. Combine that with having to clean a firearm because you fired corrosive ammunition out of it, and it definitely makes things more difficult. So if you're not getting surplus ammo and you're getting modern production 8mm Mauser, it's expensive, like $1.50 a round, and then you factor in shipping costs and taxes and whatnot, and 8mm Mauser is definitely one of those cartridges that gets up there in expense to shoot. That's something that I don't like about modern 8mm, and I mean, that's just the name of the game. It's up there in price. I mean, even something like 30-06, which is overwhelmingly abundant, has gotten up there in price. Even something like 308, which is overwhelmingly abundant, has gone up dramatically in price. Like, it's just modern day production ammunition has gone up just because, like, components and whatnot have gone up. There's just less of it on the market right now, and so as a result, there's going to be less of it available for making massive amounts of ammunition, and it's going to be more expensive. And so you're only left with, if you want cheap ammunition, you get to roll the dice with surplus ammo, and hopefully you get yourself a good batch that runs reliably. So I think that is 5 things. Let's see. Magazine capacity, that's 1. Manually operated, that's 2. Optics, that's 3. I did cover barrel length, and I guess we'll count that as 1 because even the carbine is still kind of long for my taste. So I guess we'll go ahead and we'll count that as 4, although that's really not that much of a con. But I have carried, actually, this particular Kar 98 out in the field on hunts and camping and whatnot before, and since I'm in Florida, I go through jungles and whatnot, the barrel really does get caught on a lot of different stuff. So I guess we'll go ahead and we'll count that as 4. And ammunition availability and type and roll of the dice with surplus ammo and being corrosive and whatnot, we'll go ahead and count that as 5. So that's 5 things that I dislike about the Mauser rifle series. It's just... back whenever this was overwhelmingly common, like let's say we were in the 1950s and you could go out and get this stuff for not a lot of money and you were able to get good ammo, and like it definitely had more appeal back then versus it nowadays. Nowadays it is definitely a relic from the past and a collectible. So thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.